project.
I got something to that last week.
What it really is designed to, so they can go,
Well, I
they can
got,
go borrow money.
I got aware of that yesterday when I saw
projects.
them all tearing it up, and I thought,
I know we need it.
well, that sure snuck up. We didn't say no more about
See,
it.
they was trying to get understall there in January.
How's the wheels all getting ready for?
You got 3
They
hours
wanted to get
already?
started early. We was.
Getting ready.
I know, I used to get down to my shop around 6:30 and you're there already.
So we're gonna replace
Saw
it.
that
Well, now it's all together.
Trying to get some burger night.
Well, hurry up, yeah. We talk about it for 3 years,
Yeah,
and we say we're gonna really let the public know what's going on, and then bam.
yeah, it happens.
Oh, well.
Get all kinds.
People get paid more than me to take care of it. We're on the air,
We are on the air.
and the writer's strike is almost over. 5 months, my son can go back.
Congratulations.
Shall we? Welcome, everyone. City of Washington Board of Public Works meeting Monday, today's Tuesday, September 26th,
You got
7:30
you got
a.m.
traveling on your mind.
Well, it says Monday. Roll call, please.
President Biden?
John Vietmeyer,
Here, I think.
Brett Mitchell,
Here.
Mike Radetay.
Here.
Steve Richardson.
Here.
Mike Coulter.
Here.
Chad Briggs. Steve Struber.
Here.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all for joining us. First order of business, the approval of the minutes. Any comments, questions, changes? Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved, thank you very much. Situ Farm, pay request.
Yes.
Let's see, $73,996.10.
Yes, yes. They are completely done. We're playing catch up on payments now, so they're probably, I think we'll be, sorry about that. There will probably be a final payment yet come through, but I'm not sure exactly where they're at on that, so we'll probably have one more yet. Did a good job. As usual, they came in and did a great job. It took them a little bit. They had to wait for materials, just like everybody else that's in the industry doing anything now. You hurry up and wait, it seems like a lot of time, so, but it is completed, so.
And recommended by staff, motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Motion
on,
approved, pass it on to council.
thank you. And on that, we are currently working on the 24 budget year of slip lining. So we'll have that packet put together here probably next couple months and ready to roll out for bid and
Yeah, budgets,
just keep on going. Just keep on going, so,
budget month in 5 days.
yep.
Brookview Sewer Line Creek Crossing, say that fast.
Yes, so I think, if you guys remember, I told you a couple months ago about our creek crossing out of Brookview subdivision collapsed.
Our huge P-trap.
Our huge P-trap, yes. We're finally to the point that we're ready to start working on it. Cochran did all the design on it for us. Brian's here if you guys have any questions for that. We went out for bid. We got 2 bids, 2 local contractors, CV Construction and KJU. KJU came in low bid. I'm just asking for your approval to proceed and get that started so we can get that situation taken care of.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We like that bid, and we would like to get moving, so pass it on to the council.
Yes, and I'm very comfortable with KJU getting the job done correctly and efficiently, so.
Yeah, that took a lot of planning to get that, so we appreciate that, Cochran.
Kevin, the funds for something like that, obviously that's not a budgeted item. Where does that come from?
That will come out of any extra that we might have had through the year, that savings that we was able to acquire through the year, not spending as much money, or it will have to come out of reserves to do this. Yeah, this is one of those situations, along with when we start talking about the sewer rates, the things that we don't know are gonna happen, that we have to have funds in reserve to be able to do these kind of emergency repairs. So unfortunately, that's where that might have to come out of. I'm not sure yet exactly. Because we're always a little behind on the budget numbers, month and a half, something like that, so.
Yeah. Well, as of this budget,
Yeah.
it looks like we're okay, but,
Yeah, as of this, but like I said, we're always behind a little bit. So. But either way, it has to be done, so, you know, we just gotta fund it, so.
okay. So, let's see, we're gonna have a little discussion on the sewer rate presentation.
Yeah, but I would like to move this to the end.
Move this to the
We'll get all
end.
of our, yeah, we'll get all of our paperwork and everything taken care of, and then we'll have this discussion.
I
okay?
like that. I like that. Then we're gonna move on to water, folks. And we got a water bill to pay. Caldwell Tank,
Yes,
$731,842.68.
yes.
They're getting big.
They are getting big. All the materials there, they're working diligently out there. They're on the fifth ring. I think the last email I said was that they were going to step up production if they could, if TJ could correct me on any of that. Still shooting to have it built and the structure sound by November. It will be primed at that point in time. The project will be put on hold until April, when they will come back and start doing the getting prepared to paint it, with a projected finish date of sometime in June, June 15th, something like that, so we'll be online in June of next year.
24.
Yeah, we can't, and the reason for that is just so everybody knows is, there's a certain window that you cannot paint in, you just don't want to paint tanks in, and that's the window that we're going to be finishing the construction on, so you don't want to take a chance and try painting it, and then everything fall apart, then you got to repaint it, which becomes a whole nother nightmare, so it's best just to let it sit, and then
That
come
makes
back
sense.
when the season warrants it being painted, so.
That's good. Well,
And Darren asked me, and I think it's a great idea, to look at changing the logo. So I'm working with Cochran on that to instead of having just Washington, putting the city logo on the tank. If we do that, there will be an additional cost. That's gonna change the cost a little bit, but we don't know until we get it figured out. I'm also gonna look at, if we're gonna do it to that tank, we also need to look at the other 3 tanks. And if, we need to make them all the same. If we're gonna do it, it all needs to be the same, so we may be looking at a yearly, change the logo to that, you know, on each tank, and depending on what the cost is. If we can absorb it in a couple years, it'd be great, but I won't know until we get the cost, but we're gonna work on that and see what it looks like. I like the idea. I think it's kinda neat to have that, you know, rather than just a block Washington, that's
yeah,
kinda old school. You drive around town, all over the country, and you look at all these tanks that have all the really neat stuff and the fancy stuff on it, and we got blocked Washington.
At least they know where we are, though.
yeah,
They do know that.
we know where we are.
But anyway, so just
city of brotherly
let you know
love.
we're working on that on the tank too.
Okay.
Motion to approve the request.
Motion and a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we approve that, pay request number 2 for Caldwell Tanks. And you're now working on the big project that is, bam, started, so
Yes,
tell us
it has
about
started.
Second Street.
So we are, and we've been doing this over the years, this isn't the first time we've done this. Anytime there's a street project, we evaluate how many times we've had a water main break, or issues on the street, and we discuss it in a staff meeting, and we determine if the line needs to be replaced before we go through and do the overlay and everything. Second Street is one of our notorious water main break lines. We've had, just in the last couple months, we've had 2 of them in front of the entrance to the Bank of Franklin County. We've had one up the street, a couple down the street. So we've had enough water main breaks on that to warrant it being a replacement line. That is some of our old infrastructure. That is kind of some of the things that we should be doing out of our water fund, is replacing the aging infrastructure. So that's what we're doing. We are going to be replacing a 6-inch cast iron line that's in our 100-year group. We're gonna be replacing with a PVC line. All of the fire hydrants on that line are fed by what they call a 4-inch feed shoe. So the bottom of the fire hydrant has a valve and shoe system that is 4 inches instead of 6 inches, which restricts fire flow. We're gonna upgrade all of those to 6-inch. They'll all be brand-new fire hydrants, 6-inch hydrants, so, which will increase fire flow. It'll increase the quality of water. We won't have the old lines that can leach off any iron oxide from the interior, so it's an improvement for the downtown area. We will also be doing the same thing on Main Street and 26, is that one? Main Street, yeah. Charles, 26. And then we'll be working on Front Street this coming 24. We're gonna replace the line on Front Street because that is one of our oldest lines in town. It's our highest pressure line in town. We have about 120 PSI on that line down there. We've had several breaks on that line down there too. So when you go doing overlays on streets and they run the vibrator roller down through there to pack that in nice and tight, you're looking at somewhere over 100 tons, I think, of weight that's being compacted downward, which will cause, it will cause a break after we get the street done. So,
Naturally.
yeah, so we're gonna replace that. And we are also, on the sewer side, also going to put extend our force main from Stafford Street, where from West End it ties into Stafford Street, then runs gravity all through there. We're going to replace that, and we're gonna actually put in a force main along Front Street while all this is going on and dump it into Walnut Street, so we get all of that load from the west end of town off of that gravity line.
Oh, good.
Down on Front Street, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna use HDPE pipe on that, fuse it together, roll it in a ditch and run, but, so we're gonna be doing that too, but
Kevin,
that's.
how long down Second Street? Just the downtown area?
Yeah, it's from Jefferson Street to Cedar Street,
Okay.
so that's what this project is focusing on, so. And we'll continue to do that anytime there's an older line in the older part of town, we'll continue to, improve the infrastructure as we can, so.
And how long do you project that to take?
Well, we're gonna have to work fast, because we are running with Understall, so as they go down a block, we're gonna do a block. And as they move to the next block, and we're just gonna keep on going through. So the plan is, just so everybody knows, the plan is we're starting on Jefferson Street. We will get our materials at some point in time today. And then we'll start probably first thing tomorrow morning. We may start today, depending on what time we get it. We're gonna make a live tap on Jefferson Street, so we'll have to have that intersection shut down. While we do that, we'll get it back up and running. We're gonna run to the first block. We're gonna charge that line. We're gonna disinfect it. We're gonna put it in service. We're gonna come back and make the connections, and we're just gonna keep on going to try to keep that impact at the same place as we go through. So
Okay, block at a time.
we're gonna
That's
do
good.
the best we can on that
At
too.
least we're not,
So
yeah.
would a block typically take a week or just a couple of days or?
A block, with what we've got there, it should be good digging. We probably should be able to get that block done in a week. That's the goal. Now, we never know until we start digging, to see what we've got. The live tap and at the intersection, that's gonna take us the longest, because that is a Merrimack River concrete street, so getting through it is a nightmare. So when we get through it, that's gonna be our longest thing, is making the
Well,
live.
you'll get the water lines and sewer, but as far as the construction work, that's gonna take
Oh.
how long for the, I mean, they're putting curb gutter and.
Well, that's, Charles, you could probably answer that.
Yeah, they're looking at like 2 weeks per block, so,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, our goal is to get just ahead of them.
Do the concrete work, and then they'll maybe get into asphalt work this fall, but chances are it'll get pushed till,
Oh,
Spring.
okay. Any other
So that's that.
questions on the Second Street project? All right. We already talked about South Point Water Tank,
Tank?
so let's talk about this ordinance.
Yes, we are required by DNR and EPA to have in our ordinances a lead and copper rule. And there's a certain format that they want to have, so we put together the ordinance here. It hasn't gone to our counselor, our attorney to be looked at. He'll review it, and then we'll bring it back for approval. But we have to have certain verbiage, which is in this ordinance, for the Clean Drinking Water Act, for the lead and copper rule revisions that are coming down. So that is what this is, so. Like I said, this is just the starting point of it. I just want to let you guys see that we're working on it and that we need to move forward. So it'll go next to Piontek to review and put it in the ordinance. It'll come back to either come back to you guys electronically so we can get it to a council. We need to get this in as quick as we can.
Is this something that's new or we're catching up on?
We're catching up.
Okay.
So this lines, has been added to the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like there's enough whereas, who has, and
Yeah, we need more
Mark
of
will
those.
take care of that.
That's why he gets to look at it, right?
Yeah, that's why
Okay.
he gets to look at it.
That's good. Any questions on that?
it is.
All right, thanks for that information. I guess we can go back to, well, we have any other old business? If not, we'll go back to the sewer rate presentation.
Before we get started, I know you guys gave us a recommendation at your monthly meeting last month or whatever. I since talked to Kevin, and we also talked with Mark Piontek, and the discussion was had about, with regards to building up reserves for, eventually what will be needed as an expansion of the existing treatment plant, as well as building up reserves just to get your wastewater fund so that it is self-sustaining. It doesn't need to be reliant upon the capital improvement sales tax for improvements to your system, et cetera. And really keep that up to date, and then also put in a CPI, escalator in there every year, just like we have for our water fees as well. When we discussed this, a question that Mark brought up to me that he said, well, if you're looking at doing, if you want to go ahead and have something available in there for the expansion of your treatment plant, he goes, why would you put that completely on the backs of existing users that are currently paying off the system today? And he said, you probably need to go ahead and address your connection fees as well. And I said, makes sense. Nobody had really brought that up as a discussion point. But if you truly have new users that are coming in, and they're the reason why you're gonna have to go ahead eventually and get the plant expanded, why wouldn't you address that at the same time? So I talked to Kevin, we took a look at that. We wanted to take a look at other rates that other entities around us have. Essentially, what we found is that depending upon where you go, we're about 50% of what the others are charging for connection fees. And that's just right outside of the city limits. That's Water District number 1 and Water District number 3. And we'll show you in one of the slides up here. So in essence, I had hoped to see possibly as we all know, we kept the basic rate the same. It was how much you use with regards in water, which we went from $3.02, which you currently have, up to $7 per 1,000 gallons, and that's what we had proposed and you guys have recommended. I'd hope we would be able to drop that number a little bit lower than what we did, but we were still able to drop it, and it's down to like $6.88 is what we came up, because what we're trying to do is, and what you'll see in the slides, we had about $259,000 of revenue over expenditures, what we had proposed with the rate that you guys had recommended. We dropped that down to like $200,000, with the rest of it being made up, hopefully, in, like I said, connection fees as we move down, as we move towards the future. So that's a little bit of a subtle change. I'm glad you guys had a chance to go ahead and review this again. I know it's a short notice because tomorrow night's our hearing in front of the council. We will not have an ordinance at that time in front of the council. It'll just be a hearing, give the general public if they have any questions, and go ahead and provide the same slideshow that you guys are about to see right now. So I just wanted to give you that update as to why we're coming back, why there's a little bit of a subtle change, and we hope that you guys would also see that it's probably best that we go ahead and also address those connection fees at the same time. So, Kevin, did you want to go ahead and run through it, or I can?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go out there because I'm gonna run it through as if I'm at the council meeting. I might as well, if I'm doing this, I might as well run all the way through, so I'm gonna go out there. I do wanna start out with saying that I know I do, and I know staff as a whole really appreciate you guys working through this and giving us our recommendations. So what we changed has nothing to do with the fact that you guys recommended something that we didn't all agree with. It's just we came up with, I think, I think it's a great idea, a better way for it all to be funded all the way through for everybody, so I'm gonna start with that, you guys, let you know. So what we did was we kind of went through what we are currently. So here's our current rates and current revenues as of today. So if we stayed at this point and didn't do anything, this is where we would end up at the end of the '24 budget year in the expenditures over revenue. We'd be in the hole by $1.7 million in operations. And that is encompassing the wastewater department being self-sufficient. Like, which for enterprise funds, we should be self-sufficient. So then what we did was we put in here, what we had proposed, with you guys when we went through it last month, and that's where we came up, with our dollar amount, and that would be, without the connection fees, we would have a revenue over expenditures of almost, $260,000. And that's putting all the load of everything, of growth and everything on the users and nothing on the incomers. So what we did was, like I said, like Darren said, we got together, Darren brought it to me, I thought it was a great idea. We looked at, if we raised connection fees, what is the lowest we could go with our user rates to try and make it as user-friendly as we could to the customers. We did come up with a 6.88. That was the lowest we could go and still keep at least $200,000 revenue. And that revenue over expenditures, that's kind of covers like what you guys just approved for the creek crossing that went out. You know, that's kind of what we don't have planned. We don't budget unknown things, so you rely on that a little bit to be able to offset some of that cost. And we've got several creek crossings in town that could happen to at any given time. We just don't know. We watch them as close as we can, but you just don't know. So that's what staff is proposing to go to. And then I went ahead and just put some stuff in here to let the general public, because this is a public meeting, hearing, to let the general public see some of the things that we're doing. What you see on the left or on the right is a slip-lined line. The same thing on, this is actually a slip-lined video, so you see where they cut out the slip lining as they went through the manhole to improve the structure of the sewer lines. That is our slip lining that we do. We also, then I brought in some pictures of, and we had a video there that would really be neat to play, but for whatever reason it's not playing correctly right now, but we will have it for the meeting tomorrow night. But what I want to do is I want to put some stuff out here to let people know that that truck that's sitting right there in the middle of that screen, that vac truck, we bought that a little over 5 years ago. 5 years ago, that truck cost us just a hair under $400,000. If we had to replace that truck today, let's just say that it just got totaled for whatever reason, we had to replace that whole truck today, you're looking at over $900,000, almost $1 million to replace that truck today compared to what it was about 5 years ago. So those are the costs we're looking at going down the road that we have to have funds for to be able to do that. Walnut Street lift station there, that is our most important lift station in the system. That takes everything from the northwest side of town and pumps it to the treatment plant. If we had to completely rebuild that lift station from ground up, you're probably looking at at least $1 million to do that around here right now. So those are things that we have to look at as the department to think, okay, what if this would happen? What is it going to cost? Just to rebuild that station in 2010, I think we rebuilt that. Put new pumps in it and everything. That was almost $400,000 to do that, just to put new pumps in and controls and everything. So if we would have to do that again, that would be the number we'd have to look at. Oh, it is playing. Well, I'll be danged. Anyway. Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, so this is just one lift station, and this is leading into the maintenance side of what the crews, which I wish I could have them all here, but I do have my foremans here, but wish I could have the whole crew here, because this is what they deal with on almost a daily basis, and this is what he's pulling out of that is ground up hand wipes. They do not break down. That's a grinder pump. It will grind them up, but it then plugs itself up, which then causes undue stress to the windings, the electrical sides of the motor, and then eventually that motor will have to be replaced. And that one right there is sitting at about I think that one there would cost about $16,000 right now to replace that pump and motor. That's a unit for that station. So,
How old are these pumps, Gary?
anyway, this is about a five, Sarah, how long is this?
Wow.
It's about a 5-minute video. I can probably go past it if we want to go past it, just for time-wise. I know, see if I can get past it. There we go. So then what we threw in was just let everybody actually, we don't talk about and we don't show a lot of what we do in this industry. It's pretty much like it's always been, out of sight, out of mind. Well, because of all of this stuff we got, I think it's time we bring it into sight and into mind. That bucket there is hand wipes. You can see the ground up hand wipes that plugged up the inlet of that pump. That pump is what is left over from what it tried to grind up and get out of it. So that's what we're seeing on a daily basis out in the system. We've got, I think, 12 lift stations. Every one of them are having this problem. Every one of them. So I think it's time that we get it out there. On the left, that what looks like a black blob in the center of that sewer line there, that is a blockage of hand wipes. That is all hand wipes right there in that line. That is one of our lined lines, our manholes that we do. After slip lining, we spray line all the manholes. That's one that's been sprayed. It's an orange color when it's nice, but it's sewage, so it changes. But the structure of that is still, and it has great integrity, so.
Is there any way of tracing some of these things back? I know when we had all the problem down on Rabbit Trail, we had a pretty good idea where they were coming from, but is there any way to have any idea where the hell?
Not really, because we usually gather it downstream. So it's usually at a point where there's something that causes one to catch on, then one makes two, then three, and then it builds up like this. And then by the time we know about it, because we don't have the manpower to go look at every manhole every day to see what it looks like, it's usually due to a backup. So we respond, we find this situation, we clean it, and the track back on that is nearly impossible. So, but anyway, and on the right-hand side, that's one of our lift stations. As you can see, that's the buildup around the bottom of that lift station there that we have to go in with our vac truck. Thankfully, we have it to clean that out. That is for this particular lift station. That's a once a week experience that we actually have to go out and clean that. It's just the nature of the industry, and but we have, that's manpower, that's time, that's use of the truck. Everything builds up on that. So that's what we're seeing in just one of our lift stations. So I think that, and then this was just some of the the costs from last year, I guess it was. From last year, last couple years. And then some of our proposed projects that we have coming up. It's just some numbers, just trying to let people see that it's expensive to run a wastewater department, whether it's the treatment plant itself or the collection side. They're both very expensive to operate. So just some pictures to let you see that the truck, that's our vac trailer for valve exercising machine. We're supposed to be exercising water valves. We use that for hydro excavation just like we use our truck. So very important pieces of equipment, and to replace them, it's costly anymore. Yeah. So I think that should be the end of that. And then we go into the connection fees. So here's where we started looking at our connection fees and what we currently have in place, what the area is generating, the local areas that's generating. And there's such an array of connection fee concepts out there. So it's almost like we need to figure out and do the rate as what the city of Washington needs and not what everybody else is doing. So we just tried to use them as numbers to see where we stood, and you can see we're quite a bit lower than our current local areas that the builders are building in. So.
Kevin, if you don't mind.
No, yeah, please.
The biggest thing you've got that you see there is that we set a maximum there. So if you look at that shoe factory over there, that 85 unit dwelling, you can see that, we set $3,600 maximum fee for all of that. You look at what the other costs of what it would be if you were to build the same unit out in the water district number 1, number 3, or even O'Fallon, which O'Fallon has a pretty decent model that we're
Yeah, so, no, that's, I'm open for any help.
We received in '23, Kevin's got the number up there, that's how much you received in connection fees over this past year.
Well, plus with the amount of building that's going up in, this is
Yep.
a hell of a lot of money we're talking about.
Well, it is. So the next slide, I think Sarah put in there, if we would have charged the fees that we're looking at going to, and this would be our new rate structure here, how we would look at this. It models the O'Fallon structure, which made the most sense, and it was the easiest, I think, to take over and follow. We reduced our rates by 20% from what O'Fallon's doing, only because, you know, we're Washington, we're different than O'Fallon, so we don't really feel we need to do that. So if you look at that, if we had been charging these rates through all of that development on the last screen, that would have been our potential connection fees of $190,000. Had we had this in place, and I hate looking backwards, but you have to sometimes, but that's what it would have been. So moving forward, that's kind of the potential we could be looking at possibly on a yearly event. So that's the proposed sewer rate. Threw some pictures in here so people understand costs. That user connection fee increase is what would do the expansion of our plant right here, 2 new VLRs right here, and then a new clarifier back here in the back. That's what that would be covering. Right now, that cost, as you can see, is $1.2 million of today's dollars. Staff doesn't think we're going to need to expand until 29, 30, which, looking at the numbers we've got, currently right now, we're at 2.4 million gallons a day, average, for the last month and this month, so far. And we can look back further, but really don't need to expand. It always runs about the same. And with the current growth that's on the books right now, what we have in place to be built currently, it's going to take, if you do the calculations with the daily usages and the people and everything, by the time that's done, and Darren, we proposed like 2 years for what we've got in the books for is it 2 or 3 years? I don't remember. For this right here.
Well,
For what Sal gave us on this
yeah,
proposed.
we've been looking at probably 2.5% to 3% growth based upon what we've experienced the last 5 years, what the development that's being proposed. Steve, you alluded to the stuff that you've seen out there. I'm assuming you were talking about what we've got cleared out there on the highway and a couple of other, and even the single-family units that we have. So if you take it on the high side of 3% and you look at what, like Kevin has, you're currently treating 2.2 million gallons per day, you would be somewhere around 2.6, 2.7 by the time you get to 2029. And 2029 is significant because that's when you pay off the note or the bonds on the existing plant that you have down at South Point. So you're gonna have another $1 million a year in revenue at that point to go ahead and start building up or putting in reserves for when the plant. The good news is that if we continue at about 3%, you may have even 5 to 6 years beyond
Yeah.
2029 before you have to look at where you're at 75% capacity of what's there today. So you do have some time to go ahead, the sky's not falling, that goes. But this is a good time to go ahead and address it, and I think we really probably need to look at 2029 when that bond is paid off. Where are we at, and what do we need to readdress at that time? But that's what we're seeing right now, and that's what we're projecting. And I also we talked with Cochran a little bit about on that expansion, if at 12.2 million in today's dollars, what do we need to go ahead? We based it on a 3% annual increase, and that's why you see that we're projected by the time that bond is paid off, if you had to go ahead and do the expansion at that point, you're looking at about 15 million. Yes.
Point something out, because we do a lot of this at work. This plant's gonna be 20 years old by 2020, 2029. What you haven't budgeted is what's gonna start breaking, because it is gonna be 20 years old.
Well, I budget that every year in the operational side of it, which is part of the user rate side, replacing VFDs, replacing pumps, so all that.
Compressor,
Yeah,
blowers
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we do that, yeah. We're already currently doing that as we go, so we're not sitting back and waiting, and then 20 years, oh my God, we're gonna have to do everything. because that's not the way that's not the way a plant operates. A plant doesn't say, okay, I'm gonna run for 20 years and I'm gonna break down. You know, I've got 3 VFDs sitting right now for my disc aerators that need to be replaced this year. So, yeah, so that's how we operate that plant. Both sides actually, because basically we have 2 plants there. We have our main vertical loop plant, which, you know, we all know as the treatment plant, but we also have a sludge processing plant. The old plant processes all of the byproducts that we have to take out of the system over there. So that in itself is another plant, which we have a belt press in there that needs to be rebuilt this year, and we're sitting at about $220,000 for that, which is a vital piece of equipment in the sludge processing side of it. So it all runs together. It's all hand in hand. Lift stations, they started. We got those. I got $100 and some odd thousand in the budget for a lift station that needs to be rebuilt. We're trying to rebuild one every year. It's gonna be a continuous cycle. It's just never gonna stop. So that's.
So how long would it be before you start to see the new fees being charged to hookups and things of that nature? 6 months?
We're looking at implementing it January 1st, along with the new codes. Yeah.
Council to go ahead if, you know, in our discussion tomorrow night, like I said, we're not gonna have an ordinance for the council, but we hope to have it to the first meeting in either October or the second meeting in October. But yes, we'd like to go ahead and start it after the first of the year. This gives anybody that's out there, any of the builders, et cetera, you know, when you're talking about increasing those connection fees, it gives them time to go ahead and plan out what they're gonna have to go ahead and charge, you know, after the first of the year, et cetera, because we all know how that cost is gonna get passed on. And that's something we wanna be aware of with regards to it, because that's part of your development costs, and we don't wanna price ourselves out either necessarily.
Kevin, I remember from last meeting, though, that our base rate is pretty much lower to comparable communities. Have discussed when we're gonna bring it to the voters to raise that.
I think that's when, and we'll talk about that a whole lot from now until then. I think that's when we look at it when in 29, we address that. The base rate is a driven, you will have to pay this rate. Regardless, doesn't matter. User rates can be adjusted by the user. If you want to pay less for your sewer, you use less water. That's adjustable by the user. When we raise a base rate, there is no adjustment to that. That's saying you will pay this. With what we have planned for right now, I'm very comfortable in thinking that we can maintain and grow with what we're proposing now to get to 29 and stay in the black and operate the way we're supposed to operate. With the CPI escalator along with that to help offset that increase in cost that we have every year for materials and operations. But that's, I think, what we need to address when we start to have to do the expansion, because something's gonna have to happen. We're not gonna have all of the revenue, we know that. We're gonna have to go out for a bond, we're gonna have to borrow money. That money has to be paid back. At that rate, at that point is when we have to look at rates again to say, okay, what do we need to do? And I think at that point is where we would look at the base rate to say, okay, we raise user rates, now let's look at the base rate and see what we can do there. We can do it at any time. It is something that has to go to the vote of the people, which isn't a problem. It's all about operations and growth. We have to do it. But I think that's something we can look at down the road, you know. And we're going to be reviewing this. I'm going to be, as long as I'm here, I'm going to be looking at it every year for sure, because it's operational side, but at least every 3 years, I think I'm gonna get with Darren, and as long as we're here, and review this and make sure we're going down the right path anyway. We don't wanna, I don't wanna sit here and just wait until 29 and say, okay, now what are we gonna do? We should be looking at that and trying to evaluate where we're at that point in time. So it's something that needs to be reviewed, I think, at least a minimum of every 3 years to see where we're at. So anyway, that's kind of my thinking right now. That's a surprise to Darren, but that's my thinking right now. So.
I think you want to maybe look at that base rate when, like I said, after you get either one or two critical spots. Either one, you get the bonds paid off for the existing one that you've got in 29, or when you're ready to go out for an expansion.
For an expansion. Yeah.
I think that the goal is, again, we've said all along, we want to make this a self-sustaining fund, but you want to, like I said, we don't want to have to go like with what happened with the city in 2009, where you have to go ahead and go out for a bond for the entire amount to go ahead and build a plan, because you don't have anything in reserve.
it's not what we want to do, yeah.
Right.
I would just say that that base rate, I would like to think we would certainly do a little more ongoing looking at that going forward. I think when you start talking 29, you're just kicking the can
Yeah.
down the road.
Yep, and we don't want to do that.
Have to be made sooner than later.
Yeah.
Back to the first slide on there, we're projected 2024 that we were gonna be 1.6 million
Oh,
in a deficit.
wrong way, sorry. Let me get
You
back to
know,
it. It's gonna take a while.
somebody from the general public would ask, well, where will you end in 23? And how did you all of a sudden get to 1.6 million in the hole?
That's, okay, so how we're getting to that point is us encompassing all costs in the wastewater department, being self-funded, self-sufficient.
I guess what is 23? Do we know where 23 is?
23, you can look at what the handout I gave you. We're gonna be, I think, just barely breaking even in 23.
I guess then that would be my question, how we go from breaking even in 23 to 1.6 in the hole.
We went from not receiving a half-cent sales tax for slip lining and not receiving funds from the stormwater fund for slip lining and continuing on that course of slip lining what we've always slip lined and maintaining that standard we're at right now, and the increase in cost of operations. Like I said, that one pump I was talking about in that description, last year would have been $5,000. This year, it's $16,000. If I had to order it for 24, it's $16,000. So that's where it's,
Someone from the general public
Yes.
is gonna ask, where were you in 23, and now why all of a sudden are we
And that's-
1.6
yeah.
in the hole in 1 year?
and that's how we're there, so.
I would have left whatever the 202 that you have, I would have left that at the 259 and still increased your fees, because again, you're just kicking the can down the road with a smaller Band-Aid today than you are tomorrow.
And it's a minimal decrease from 7 to 688, so but that's really up for you guys, that's, we'll take your, I mean, I know I'll take your recommendation, Darren will.
The biggest thing we wanted to do was that we can't address this without addressing the connection.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
And again, I think that was a great
Yeah.
catch in doing that. I'm just not so sure that wasn't, hey, we were at 259, we're a little better because we found the connection fee thing. We're a little
Yeah.
better than where we projected, because the one project we just did, whatever that was, that we gave the awarded a bid to KJ.
sewer line, yeah, 96,000, $100,000, yeah.
One or two of those a year and you're
Mm-hmm.
back in the hole.
Yeah.
You do a lot of them.
But, again,
No,
I think we're moving in the right direction. I just don't think we should be so focused on keep kicking the can.
Yeah.
We've kicked the can for a lot of years, and
that's why we're having this discussion now, yep, yep, yep. So and that pretty much I was at the end of the presentation. We'll go to the end here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, we gotta go
Good
past that.
presentation, thanks.
And I want to thank Sarah for doing this. She's in the back room, but Sarah put all this together for us. Did a great job of putting it together in short, fast notice. So she did a great job. So there was a summary there. So this is what current operations we would be. Let's see. I gotta get my bearing back on this now.
How much, and maybe it was in here and I just missed it, but, excuse me, how much does this impact a normal household a year versus a business up in the industrial?
Well, the businesses are gonna notice a higher hit than the residential. Put it to you that way.
We have kind of an average cost of,
We did have that on that handout, Kevin.
Yeah, that's on the handout, so I don't have that with me, but I think the average cost was gonna be like,
never mind.
an increase of 14 on top
Yeah, it
of
was
what
in
you're
that
already
handout
paying.
last month.
Yeah,
I think if you go back to the slide right now, you're somewhere at 23 for an average sewer bill, and I think it goes up to like 37.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, the average increase was like $14 for the average increase, and then, but that's the increase, that's added to your current bill. So if you were, paying $20, that would be added to that, whatever. So you guys did ask me for a couple questions on things in last month's meeting, so I want to get them to you. The one was, do we have any idea of number of users that will be less than 1,000 gallons? That was one of the questions. Under 1,000 gallons would be 470 users. So that's pretty much your low usage ones. From 1,000 to 3,000 gallons, there'd be 2,386. From 3,000 to 5,000 gallons, there'd be 1,778 users, and over 5,000, there would be 1,451 users. So our mid-range users are the ones that are the highest of the changes. That's a total of 6,085 accounts that use sewer. We have some other ones that use water, not sewer, so with irrigations and stuff, but that's on the water side. One of the other ones was, do we know a number of, based on normal usage, when we would get to the point that we'd have to expand the plant? We've talked about that. So what I did was I took our current, I need to change that slide. Our current flow to the treatment plant is 2.4 million right now. Last month, and it's 2.3 right now in September for this year, so it will be 2.4 by the time we get to the end of the year. So if we take what we have in the books today that is planned to be built for users, and we do the calculations with the daily usage and all that stuff, by the time, this I think is either a 2 or 3 year projection that I got from Sal. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's 2 or 3, and I'll know that for the Wednesday night's meeting. We would be at like 2.6 million by the time what's in the current books to be built. So we're not jumping fast, but what this doesn't take in, and I'm not throwing a scare out here or anything, but what it doesn't take in is the growth that is happening on the south side of the city out in the district, because we're taking in their sewer when we put that trunk line in back in 2008, 2007, when we did that, all the way out to Country Club. We're picking up all of those users now too. So as that grows with users, we'll be taking in that volume, and we really don't know what that is.
There's a lot of development out there.
And there's a lot going on out there, so we don't know what those real numbers are. We could find them somewhere, but it's a challenge to find some of that. But we got that to look at, and we don't know what industry is going to do. You know, if we get a big user that comes into town, now there's ways for them to offset the cost of an expansion and things like that, but that's the numbers we don't know that would be adding volume to it. So there is some numbers that are unknowns out there, but what we do know is that we would be at 2.6 by the time what we currently have in the books today to be built, that's either built and ready to be built or through the planning stages. We'd be up to 2.6 by the time that's done. We think it's 2 years, I think is what that is, 2 to 3.
Refresh my memory, what's the capacity of our current plant?
4. When we hit 3, we have to be in the expansion design. At 3. So I'd say 2.8, we really need to start looking at it and be there at 3. So, but anyway, so that's kind of where we'll be at when what we currently have in the books to be at right now is 2.6 at that point in time. So, and I think that should be it. Treatment plant. Yes, that's it. So.
Any other business? Any other questions? Thank you very much for the information, and that's coming up tomorrow night, Wednesday night.
Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock,
Tomorrow night.
we'll have a hearing in front of council.
Oh, it is 6 o'clock. I thought it was 6. Is it 6? Okay, good.
Changed it on my phone already. Bring your phone over here, I'll change it back for you.
6 o'clock here, right?
Next meeting scheduled for October 17th. Motion to adjourn?
So move, have a safe trip.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all very much.